Invincible is commonly praised to be one of the greatest comic book shows of all time. Now, whether you believe that or not, it is a fantastic show in my opinion, and, well, let's rank all 4 seasons to come out. Honestly, I don't really know what else I could add to this intro other than just starting. I guess I could say this. There's no season of Invincible that's bad. But there's no season that's like perfect or 10 out of 10 in my opinion. But I'll get to that. Anyways, at number 4 is the obvious one, season 2. Season 2 is definitely the weakest. Based off episode quality, like they don't like every other season has an episode at least at 9.7. This is the only one where I find it hard to give a episode that rating. I think my highest one is episode 4, had like a 9.4. And it also has, in my opinion, the worst average out of any Invincible season. I mean, episode average, where it has the lowest episode average. I mean, I don't know how I go into that more. It also does have the worst episode of the show, although it has my personal favorite premiere. People will say season 1, but to be fair, I did watch the show after I knew the Omni-Man reveal, so that does affect my opinion. But anyways, let's get into the pros and cons. Let's start with pros, because I think I may be talking about more cons this video. Well, I did say that it does have the worst episode in the show, and it has the lowest episode average, and it's the worst season. There's still some greatness. I really like the Nolan episode 4. I think that was a really fantastic episode. I think episode 5 was a great follow-up. It was a really great episode. And the finale was, or in season 4, the worst. But it was still a fantastic finale. You know, I feel like they have pros like that just improve the season. And other than one episode that I would be like, yeah, I could consider it to be bad, or at least mid. The season is pretty good with its episode quality. Like I said, I really like the premiere. I think it works really well. And while I don't think it works well for the season, and it doesn't really help Angstrom Levy's character, as his character kind of just falls off a cliff, especially in season 3. But whatever. I think it's a great premiere. I think episode 2, like I said, the worst of the show. Even worse than Herm. I don't care. Herm maybe just slightly more boring and be more filler. It's not a filler episode. Herm's not a filler episode. It's just not a good one. But this episode, it is, like, honestly, if you say this episode's filler, kind of right. I mean, it doesn't really do much other than, like, 2 minor things. Or 1 minor thing. It just doesn't do much. And, yeah. Episode 3 is a cool idea, but it was done much better in season 3. Episode 4, like I said, was fantastic. Episode 5, a really great follow-up. Episode 6, it was okay. It was a great episode, but it's one of the lesser ones of not just this season, but all of Invincible. Episode 7 was pretty cool with Anissa's arrival, and then, like I said, the finale, pretty great. But one big problem I have is how disconnected and aftermath fillery this season feels. Also, the 4-month break was abhorrent. Like, I didn't watch the season with the 4-month break. I watched Invincible after season 3 came out. But, like, yeah, I can totally imagine that you not only do you have to wait, like, 3 years for season 2, but then they took a 2-month break between that. And also, I'm pretty sure they didn't even take it for the animation, or at least the creator, Robert Kirkman, said, oh, it was because we wanted people to dwell on episode 4 longer. Like, what are you on about? No, that's so stupid. Anyways, that's one thing. But, like, the episodes just don't flow together well, you know? Like, I feel like episode by episode by episode, they just, like, it's lesser than the sum of its parts, if that's what I'm trying to say. It's, like, sure, I think my average rating for the season is, like, a 9.4, 8.4, 8.5, but I would bring the season down because it just has a worse average. And it just feels like things like that are just disconnected. It doesn't have the through line that season 1 had with its plot. It just feels like there's a bunch of randomness in this season that is not appreciated. Although, to be fair, other than season 1 and the back half of season 4, Invincible doesn't really have a through line of a plot to get, of something to get through. But, hey, whatever. Anyways, at number 3, and here, also, wait, sorry, season 2, I'd give like a 7.9. This is good, maybe almost great season, but it's just lesser than the sum of its parts and has a handful of problems. Anyways, also, wait, sorry, quick thing, season 2 is when the animation just goes nosedive down in quality. People are now overglazing season 1. Season 1 never had great or amazing animation. The Omni-Man fight was where the animation, that was actually pretty darn good. And the rest of the season was solid. It could be good sometimes, it could be really bad with the CGI animation. But Invincible season 1 never really had that great of animation, but I'll get to that more in season 1. But season 2, where the animation just went into the floor with how bad it was. Anyways, season 3 is my number 3. My biggest problem with it is it's close to the next, to number 2 and even number 1 to a sense, but it has problems. For example, it has the weakest premiere of the season by a good margin. I did not find the premiere that good or hooking. It didn't hook me in. I just found it really dumb. The whole Doc Seismic plot I just found incredibly stupid and is some of where the main power scaling problems of this series come from. Because I'm gonna admit, this series has god awful power scaling and it makes me mad. I don't care if Rob Grossman is like, oh, I hate power scaling. That doesn't make a false critique. Now I'm saying power scaling where it's like, Thrag does something star level, but here it is something continent level. Improper writing. Like, no, that's stupid. But when Mark is losing to Doc Seismic, and then in the same season where he has no power progression, by the way, same season he's beating Conquest. Or at least brawling with Conquest. You're telling me Doc Seismic. Mark felt more from Doc Seismic than he did Conquest. Mark never got knocked out in the Conquest battle. I'm positive. I'm pretty sure. Mark never got knocked out for like a good period of time in the Conquest battle. He did in the Doc Seismic one. I'm just saying. Like problems with that, like the premiere, a little weak. Still like an 8 out of 10 episodes, just pretty weak. Episode 2, well, I have beef with the Mark and Cecil debate as it kind of just makes Mark's character a bit insufferable. And it makes the writing towards Cecil just a little off. But I'll give it credit, it is a fantastic episode for what it does. And then episode 3, it's pretty great. It's pretty good. Episode 4, I will say, very slept on episode. I think it's a fantastic episode of the season where Mark goes to the future with some really cool plot lines, but the Mark or Alan and Nolan stuff truly carries. Here's where things start to go down. Episode 5 is just not a good episode. I'm gonna be so honest. I think it's the second worst episode of the series. The Titan plot has and will always be bad. Like, I don't think it's ever been good, period. I mean, the best it got was in season 1. But even then, I'm just like, no. No, not at all. But the only thing saving it from being number 1 worst is that there's some good stuff with Rex that I remember, and there's some other good stuff. Like, there's just good content outside of it, but when you're going into the Dragon plotline, it's just so bad. Episode 6 is pretty slept on, in my opinion. I think it is a really great episode, going through Powerplex and his morals and stuff. And then, here's where I get mad. The Invincible War episode, the most overrated episode in any comic book show ever. I'll say it. I think this episode, great episode, maybe even really great. I give it like an 8.8, maybe 8.7, because of some poor writing with Angstrom, where he just feels really out of character, and Mark being kind of insufferable in some parts of this episode. Anyways, But like, how is this thing have a 9.7 on IMDb? I will never know. I can list like off the top of my head 50 episodes, 50 episodes plus that are better but lower rated. To note, I think there is only you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure there's only one episode of any other comic book show equal to the Invincible War, and that's Remember It from X-Men 97, which I don't even think that deserves the title of the third best or fourth best. It just does not deserve that. I mean, I'm not lying when I say every single episode in Daredevil Season 3 is better than the Invincible War. You know what every single episode in Daredevil Season 3 is? Lower rated than the Invincible War. I mean, like, we're getting into territories where I'm just like, what are we doing here? And I will say the finale is the second best episode of the show. I think it is a perfect episode with the fight, and unlike Season 1's finale, it doesn't just irrationally drag on. I think it's really good. But one thing this season is kind of missing is a through line. Well, I do think this season is better than some of its parts. Like, some of its parts equate to, like, 8.7, I think. And then I do think this season's higher than that. But my biggest problem is that it's not that much better than the sum of its parts. Like Invincible Season 1, I think the exact same episode average, but it's better than some of its parts because it has a common through line throughout the season. And also Mark is just a problem. I'm sorry, I just have so many problems with Mark and his characterization in the season and how he is. Like, I don't even care. Like, is it in character? Some of the things he does? Maybe, yes. But it still doesn't mean he's not annoying and kind of insufferable at some parts. He's also such a hypocrite. Mark annoys me this season. Anyways, Oliver gets some good stuff to do. This is the season where Eve kind of starts to lose her identity. It definitely starts and just stops. Eve is basically just Mark's girlfriend from season 4 and beyond because I don't know. Apparently, just can't write a good girlfriend character. There are honestly there are very little comic book shows that can do it. Like, the best one that comes to the top of my head is like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Fitzsimmons, but like, and maybe like Daredevil with Karen Page and Matt Murdock, but yeah. Anyways, overall, I think it's a fantastic season, like a 9.2, 9.3. It just has it has some lows and highs of Invincible, and some pretty crummy animation other than the Conquest fight. I mean, I'm pretty sure there was a scene, a porch, or like a rooftop scene, where Mark's, like, left arm was just cropped out of frame. I'm not kidding you. And it's not good. Anyways. At number 2, I have Invincible Season 1. I know people think that it's people will be like, oh, it's the best. I disagree. First of all, I think a pilot is a bit overrated, but to be fair, I'm going to give them credit because I knew about the Omni-Man reveal. But yeah. Like, the pilot, it's a great pilot. Like, it's a really great pilot. I mean, some of my problems are like some of the Guardians of the Globe stuff, their introductions could feel a bit exposition-y just to build their characters for them to die, when I feel like they could have just done that throughout the episode. And it is quite quickly paced, which I think is a good thing to jump into your series. You don't need to drag it out that much. But overall, I think it's a great pilot. Then episode 2, I remember it being a great episode. It's a really great episode. Honestly, that is what kind of saved season 1. Even when an episode is not the greatest, like the robot, like the Reaniman episode, I'm like, it was good, but it just was not up to par. And the Neil Armstrong episode, it just was not up to par. But honestly, those episodes are probably the worst in the season because they don't follow the through line or as much. The through line of this season really helps. Like, I would probably put season 3 above it if it weren't for the fact that they had this single through line of a single plot. Like, I don't think a single other Invincible scene has that. Like, season 2 is just a jumble of a bunch of cool concepts. Season 3, yep, the exact same thing. Like, I guess like, if anything, the Omni-Man and Alan stuff had some things, but that was only for the first half. Like, there's just not much build-up for those first 2 seasons. And then the first half of Season 4 really felt that. But when Omni-Man came in and the Viltrumite War started, that is when they started getting a through line. And, oh, wait, guess what? That's the best part of Invincible Season 4. This season is severely boosted by the fact that it has a good through line. Anyways, let's get through the episode. Episode 3, I remember being pretty great. And episode 4, the Neil Armstrong one, again, it was a good episode, just wasn't my favorite. Episode 5, it would have been one of the lesser ones because like I said, I hate the Titans storyline, but Battlebeast coming in at the end and obliterating Mark was dope. Episode 6, this is the episode that made everyone hate Amber because, oh my god, actually, episode 7 also had some problems with Amber, I'm pretty sure. Which, speaking of episode 7, honestly, I still debate whether it's better than the finale. It's a fantastic episode, one of the best of the entire series. Now, the finale. Everyone says, oh my god, 10 out of 10, best episode of the series, one of the greatest episodes of animation ever. And here's where I'm going to stop you there. While I will say, the Omni-Man fight, yeah, I think that's the best thing in the show. What will you have in 500 years? That whole scene with J.K. Simmons and his acting, and honestly, his entire fight is just perfect. It's an incredible fight, and I hear a lot of, like, I brought this up before in, like, comment sections, where I'm like, the episode just drags. There's 17 minutes. I'm telling you, like, you can watch, like, 4 out of it and be perfectly fine. The episode completely just drags. Like, to my memory, Mark has 3 scenes that are practically the exact same of him expressing how he feels about his father. Now, am I mad that he's doing that? Actually, yes. I'm pretty sure it's one with Eve, one with Amber, then one with Amber, Eve, and William. Okay, why would you have one with Amber and Eve, and then have another one with Amber and Eve and William? Just have the one with Amber, Eve, and William. It's so stupid. And I feel like there's just so much that drags in that final episode. I was like 17 minutes, and I paused, and I'm like, how the hell do I have 14 minutes left of this episode? I feel like this episode should be done 1 minute ago. Like, seriously. It just drags and drags and drags and drags with either poorly written dialogue, mainly in the Amber scenes, redundant scenes where it just keeps on happening in the same way, or scenes that are just useless. They just don't need to exist. Not even because they're redundant, just because they are completely useless. And it makes me mad. I'm furious about it. I'm sorry. Like, it just makes me so mad sometimes about those kinds of things. Yeah, but the Omni-Man stuff was truly incredible, so I bring it up. And also, oh yeah, I was talking about, when I bring that up in comment section, people are like, oh, you were L attention span, you need fighting in every episode. No, honestly, like, if the Omni-Man fight was just one big fight, I wouldn't like it that much. What I do like is that it is incredibly written. I'm looking for good writing, not crazy fights. So when I just see scenes I think are just either poorly written, redundant, or just useless, I'm not gonna like it. Like, honestly, I can deal with episodes like the Grand Design from Daredevil Born Again. I think that is a perfect 10 out of 10 episode. You know what that episode has? Zero action. Like, zero action. Zero things that could even be considered action. Just all dialogue, 55 minutes. And I love it. Like, I'm not like a guy who's like, oh, there's no action in this episode. 0 out of 10. Like, that's dumb. Anyways, overall, I think season 1's a fantastic, like, 9.4, 9.5. Actually, no, 9.4. It's saying at 9.4. I think it's a fantastic season. A bit overrated, but fantastic, nonetheless. And yes, number 1, season 4. I mean, I'm not gonna deny it. It's the best. Not only does it have probably 2 best episodes, episode 5, I think, is 9.9, just right below the original Conquest episode. Then I think episode 7 is the best episode of the series. It has some truly fantastic moments, like the destroying the planet Viltrum, the Thrag and Omni-Man conversation, Thrag, period. I think Thrag is an incredibly overhyped villain, especially for what's gonna happen later in the comics. Like, he's a good, maybe even great, but he's no spectacular villain. What is another thing? Oh, yes. Herm. Okay, Herm is not filler. If you're saying like, this is why I hate, like, there's this, I think, what's his name, like, Danny Moda? He made a video or a short about Invincible fans being like, it's filler and filler. And then he just explained why it's not filler. But I'm like, that's a terrible criticism. Like, saying it's filler, that's a bad criticism. It's not that important, that's a fine criticism. It doesn't do much for Mark's character arc. It's kind of like a cement episode where it's just like grinds it in, you know? And it's just like, this is what's going to happen. I had an example of another episode, like, the bottle episode from Daredevil Born Again, season 1, where it's like, with interest, the bank heist episode, where it's technically not filler because it helps develop Matt's becoming Daredevil again, but it's also not that important, and you could definitely skip it and enjoy the season perfectly fine. Like, there are like 2 scenes that are actually important in that entire episode, and then you're fine. Like, generally, you're just fine. And there's also just a really boring, lazy, and poorly written episode. It's like a 6.7 out of 10. I just realized. It's a pretty okay episode. It's pretty average. Anyways, now let's talk about the good. Actually, nope, let's stick a little bit to the bad. Or not relatively bad. Episode 1, I thought, was a pretty great episode. I will say. A bit, like, I like Universa and that stuff. It was cool. But, like, let's go from this. Episode 1, 3 are kind of recycled. Episode 3, the reason why I'm not saying it's, like, one of the worst of one of the lesser episodes in the entire show, even though it has the Titan storyline, which sucks. It has good things outside the Titan storyline, but it is only like an 8 compared to, like, I would say episode 1's like an 8.7, episode 3 is an 8, and episode 4 is a 6.7. And I will say, one episode that extremely overrated already is the Invincible season 4 finale. Not in ratings, but by people being like, it's a masterpiece, 10 out of 10, it's one of the best finales, boo, yeah, it's amazing. No, it's not. Like, it's a really great episode, again, like an 8.9. That's why I gave it. But it's not fantastic. Like, it's not perfect. The PTSD scenes got old real quick. Like, I'm sorry. It just, like, the first, like, I got it by number 1. And number 1 scene, you got it. You got Moto. I think all those scenes did not help. They only detracted from really good scenes by just cutting off good dialogue for relatively useless scenes. And I like it in the comics better where they just have it all at once. Now, do I think that should have been the start of the episode where Thrag revealed his card? No. But I think they could have had that scene and then had Thrag at the end. I think they could have shown all of it, then had Thrag at the end and feel Mark coming home. And actually, I feel like it would have been better if we had all this had all this stress about what Mark's feeling. Then we get home, it's great, it's fine. The Viltrumites are not there, and we kind of get this whole episode to sort of break it down and make Mark feel better that the Viltrumites, they're not here, they're fine, they're gone, and kind of get Mark by the end of the episode be more happy and better feeling, just for Thrag to show up and be like, yeah, no, we're here, and we are already here. And I think that would have been much better. But I do have a problem, and also Paul and Debbie breaking up was a bad decision. I have problems like that. But, episode 2, and then 5 through 7, pretty peak. I would say the Battle of Telestria episode is the most flawed of it. Sure, the Omni-Man and, or the Nolan and Oliver conversations and parts of that were pretty amazing. And the Battle of Telestria itself wasn't half bad. But it and also Thrag, like, I never thought Thrag was too terrible in that episode. Like, sure, was he a bit disappointing in some aspects? Yeah. But he's still a great villain. Or, not great. He was okay. He was solid, which is what Thrag is. I never expected more from him. And we did get more, but I'm not expecting more from him later in the future because I just don't think he'll be that fantastic. But anyways, my biggest problem is things like the mole reveal. Like, generally, that was a awful reveal. That was just god-awful. And the defenses that it immediately swarmed in made me so mad. The idiots. I'm calling you. If you believe this, you're an idiot. I don't care. I know you're not supposed to call your viewers idiots, but you are. Because, okay, I don't care that, sure, if you're a mole in real life, realistically, you wouldn't want to be the highest thing. Like, you wouldn't want to be, like, if you were trying to be a spy for the US government, you want to be the vice president, right? Because then you'd easily get caught. Okay, sure. But, and you would actually realistically want to be someone with relatives amount of power, but not noticeable enough. Sure, that's true. But you know what you also don't, but you know what sometimes you don't want in shows? Realism. Sometimes it is good to be unrealistic. Because, for example, in court shows, and whenever you have a courtroom scene, yeah, you know how much more boring and poorly written those episodes would be, and just how much worse it would be? Like, 90% of courtroom scenes are just completely inaccurate. And you know what? I'm perfectly fine with that. Because guess what? It's more entertaining if you have it with time and you don't have to stretch out your show for months to years, which is how actual courtrooms go when you have a big case. Like things like this, you don't need to be realistic every single second. Yes, sure, you don't want the person to be noticed and they should be unimportant. But a character who doesn't even have a proper name, has like 5 lines of dialogue, has like 2 scenes in the entire show, who no one cares about, who has no importance to any character, and no impact on any character, that should not be your huge mole reveal. That is so unbelievably stupid. You can't just have your giant mole reveal be some random guy, which is another thing that I saw where people like, well, none of you guessed it. Seems like the writing was incredible with this mole. No one guessed it because it was just really poorly written. The clues were not there. This was a random nobody character that no one cares about. For example, I'm gonna give one of my favorite movies of all time, one of the best murder mysteries ever, Knives Out. It has, I'm telling you, a perfect reveal with Ransom. Every clue is there. Everything is there, but you probably didn't predict it. I mean, you could have, but most people didn't when they first saw the movie because of how fantastically it was woven in. But when you rewatch it, you're like, oh, it's obviously Ransom. And they have things like this. Ransom was a good twist to this villain and the good mystery because you had Evans there. It was a character that we care about. It was a character that we know, and it was a nice way because we already thought Marta was the murderer, and it's a nice way to show that nope, Marta was clear and it was Ransom. Now, let's spin it in another way. This would be as if, we take. What's my example? The Invincible example would be if, instead of it being Ransom, who was the murderer, it was actually that one kid, that one like alt-right kid. You know how I just said that one alt-right kid because did he have a name? I can't remember a name. I genuinely can't remember a name. He was just like, he was the kid to like Walter, that guy, Walter and Jody. Like, you know how bad a reveal that would be? Like, oh, this random kid who no one cares about, who had no plans printed there, is our main villain. That's the first take. We're sure, if you want to be a good murder, you gotta be subtle. Just like here, if you want to be a good mole, you gotta be subtle, and no one should know, and you shouldn't be having your main characters, and it's still a terrible idea. But, still. Also, my example for this next thing of, oh, but that's incredible, right? Because you didn't figure it out. No one figured it out. Okay. This is like the Hans from Frozen example, or the Assistant Mayor Bellwether from Zootopia. Sure, no one figured it out because there were no hints and it would make 0 sense. Anyways, I didn't mean rant on that episode for long. I'm just saying why it's like a 9.3 or a 9.2. Episode 2 is very underrated. Like, it's a 9.5 because it has a bunch of problems, specifically with the Ragnar section of the episode, but it's still pretty fantastic. And like I said, the Conquest episode rematch is pretty perfect. The Nolan and Debbie scene is one of the best of the entire show. And I thought it was leading to something good, but nope. We just had to. That still made me mad with Debbie and Paul. Anyways, then I think episode 7 the best episode of the show. Constant action, but it also just woven in between really well written dialogue and really good scenes. And overall, I just think it's a spectacular episode. Anyways, so, while Invincible is not my personal favorite comic book show of all time, not even remotely close, like, it's maybe like my sixth. But, honestly, it has some incredible seasons. Like, season 4, I'd give it like a 9.6 out of 10. It's very, very good. Anyways, yeah. I did rant about the Telestria mole reveal a bit too much, but hey, you get what you get. Anyways, so yeah, Invincible, pretty good show, you know? Although, here's my suggestion, quick thing, this is just, I'm going to just give some suggestions of other shows to watch, other comic book shows to watch. First off, watch Legion. Like, if you've seen Invincible, you can watch Legion. It's a spectacular show. Season 1 is a near masterpiece, one of the greatest seasons of comic book television. Speaking of some of the greatest season comic book shows, watch just season 1 of Jessica Jones. Honestly, like, season 2 is pretty mid, and season 3 is good, but nowhere near season 1 quality. Watch Daredevil. Watch Loki. You've probably already seen it. I highly suggest Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a long one, like 136 episodes, but it's definitely worth it. Unlike something of similar length, like The Flash or Arrow, it never fell off. It was just quite consistent from season 1, episode 17 to the very end with pretty great quality. Anyways, bye. Yeah, this is my opinion on Invincible, and bye.